bored. 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 Bored, bored, bored.
The final control point is being contested. You failed!
Moses, I'm bored. Entertain me.
I'm not your own personal entertainment hotline. Look, why don't you just go watch a movie?
Movie? A movie?
Pa?
You know, movies are a multi-sensory experience. They have to combine things like music and story, acting, sound effects to make something wholly watchable and enjoyable. Now, I'm a music nerd, so there's a lot of music-themed movies in here, but the more I look through them, I wonder what constitutes a music movie. I mean, is it a straight-up musical? Is it just something with a catchy song thrown in? Yes, I want to watch all of these. You want to watch them with me, don't you? Do you like movies? Do you like music? Right, sweet! Then you're gonna love music movies. Alright, where do we begin? I will start with Sound of Music. No, Phantom of the Opera. No, there's only one logical way to solve this. A democratic decision has been made. We are going with the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Alright, now for the purposes of this show, I have made a list of what really constitutes a music movie. The criteria, as it were. Those criteria are, now pay attention please, the movie in question must have at least 5 songs. 1. I have a lot of movies I want to talk about, okay? The list cannot exclude that many. And what better way to start off the series than what really exemplifies a music movie, the most famous and notorious of them all, Rocky Horror Picture Show. Adapted from the stage show of a similar title, the Rocky Horror Picture Show is the very definition of a cult film, being on a near constant theatrical run since its release in 1975 and remains a mainstay of midnight showings worldwide. It's campy, creepy, catchy, and pants-wettingly funny. It might take a while for some people to warm up to it because of the overt sexual themes, but once you do, you're in for a wholly enjoyable experience with some very memorable music moments. The bizarre tone is set right from the get-go with the iconic disembodied lips, which always threw me back to the mouth logo for the Rolling Stones.
Stood still, but he told us where we stand.
A clever and self-referential song to set the tone for everything to come. The song is an homage to the multitude of sci-fi and horror movies from the past that Rocky Horror draws influence from.
Science fiction.
Wow, this gal has a really nice voice. I wonder who's singing. Richard O'Brien? No, this is clearly a female singer. I mean, Richard O'Brien is the writer and the songwriter, so clearly you've got to confuse it. It is? But it sounds like a completely different person from a completely different sex. And look at the lips. Those are not male lips. Oh, those are Patricia Quinn's lips. Thank God. Sexuality intact. The entire intro song and even the credits are an homage to the horror and sci-fi movies of yore. Almost like the opening of a serial or a cheap drive-in flick, and introducing all the main characters quickly as their typecast, like the scientist, etc. Perhaps not the most iconic song of the film, but certainly the most memorable. You're really not allowed to call yourself a Rocky Horror fan and not have this song memorized. The story itself revolves around the misadventures of always a bridemaid, never a bride, Janet, and straight-laced Brad as he musters the courage to ask for her hand in marriage which takes us right into our full first musical number.
The river was deep, but I swam it.
Janet,
The future is ours, so let's plan it.
Janet.
So
Most all the songs in the movies are comedic, which would make this a science fiction, horror, romantic musical comedy, an often overlooked genre. It's an exceedingly clever song about Brad mustering up his courage and admitting his devotion to Janet. What makes the song so memorable is how it's punctuated with the deadpan "Janet" for every line.
let's go see the man who began it.
Janet,
When we met in his science exam it,
Janet.
made me
Then we can green eggs and ham it, Janet.
Now I've one thing to say, and that's damn it, Janet, I love you.
One of the many things I admire about the soundtrack is how it varies. It uses a lot of motifs from the 1950s and corny love songs, rock and roll, to the more modern heavy reverb 70s rock, to overblown and dramatic stage musical numbers. It really keeps you engrossed and it fits the action so well. Now there's always been something that confused me about this part. You see way in the background here in the wedding photo? Look. There's a towering Tim Curry who will portray Frankenfurter later on, Richard O'Brien, who's going to portray Rip Rap, and then Patricia Quinn, who portrays Magenta. They have this odd aside, and then boom! Please welcome the American Gothic backup singers! I mean, which are the real characters? Are they in disguise? Are they spying and making plans for future events? Look, even the narrator's trying to figure this shit out. So the whole story is told to us from the eyes of a criminologist, retelling us the story of what happened to Brad and Janet, simply called The Denton Affair, on that dark and stormy night, and is played by the otherworldly suave Charles Gray, who you might remember from a few of the James Bond films.
What was the bang?
It must have a blowout.
In classic goofball horror movie fashion, the only salvation to be found is, of course, a gigantic freaking castle. Really? A castle? In the middle of any town, USA? And as the laws of such movies dictate, Brad and Janet completely bypass logic and enter the grounds of Frankenstein Castle.
In the velvet darkness of the blackest night.
A quick but pleasant little tune to let us know that in fact, yes, there are lights on in the castle. Someone must be home. Our victory is assured. Now this song is actually one of my favorites. It's a little foreboding since we obviously know no good can come of their decision to go to this castle on a dark and stormy night. But it also carries a hopeful tone since they believe they found their salvation. However, it's Richard O'Brien that steals the show here for me. His lyrics here are so oddly poetic and juxtapose the happy, peppy lyrics of Brad and Janet. Believe it or not, it's a nice little touch of the normal before things all go to hell.
Hello.
We've arrived on a rather special night.
But this is but a prelude.
It's astounding. Time is fleeting.
To the weirdness. One of the most famous moments from the film, and for good reason. The Time Warp is one of the catchiest tunes in the world, and once learned, cannot be unlearned. Curious of just how to do the Time Warp? It's just a jump to the left.
With your hands on your hips. Just a jump to the left. With your hands on your hips.
One of the great things about the song is its blatant lack of meaning. It's all really just in good fun. I don't think anyone can analyze these lyrics and come out with anything too deep and meaningful. I mean, it throws in a tap dance number in the middle of it for no other reason than just to be fun and goofy, and it succeeds exceedingly well.
One of you guys know how to Madison?
From the high energy of the spectacle that is the Time Warp, we are finally introduced to the star of the show, Dr. Frank Furter, played by the scenery-chewing Tim Curry.
How'd you do,
I swear, I can't imagine anyone else in the role of Dr. Frank and pulling it off. I have never seen anyone so deep in a role and having such a laugh with it. It's astounding.
Light of day, but by night I'm one hell of a lover. I'm just a sweet trans.
Now this is Frank Furter's introductory song. It's a little rock and roll ditty explaining what exactly he is, but more importantly, what he's not.
So, come up to the lab and see what's on the slab. I see you shiver with anticipation.
The two are invited to remove their wet things, well, stripped, and are invited up to Frank's laboratory, where the crowd is already assembled to witness Frank's great unveiling. So as an obvious homage to Dr. Frankenstein, what has Dr. Frankenfurter created? Some ritualistic horror? Some shambling evil that we dare not speak its name? Some foul beast that... No, it's much worse. He's invented singing Swede!
The sword of Damocles is hanging over my head.
This is a quick little tune sung by the newly born Rocky as he tries to make sense out of what the hell is going on. It even seems he knows his life is destined to suck, now that there's an effeminate man in a pearl necklace and a lab coat chasing lustfully after him all over the lab.
Well, really? That's no way to behave on your first day,
What strikes me as bizarre is that after this song, Rocky becomes a rather childlike mute with no more lines of dialogue and a completely different and naive personality.
What do you think of him?
I don't like men with too many muscles.
I didn't make him for you!
If we only
Now this is a very clever song for two reasons. First, it's literal. Dr. Frankenfurter can, quite literally, make you a man. Chances are he won't be making it for you, rather than for himself, but the point stands.
he'll do press-ups and chin-ups, do the smash, clean and
Second,
jerk.
it's about making Rocky more of a man?
Hard work. Such strenuous living.
Well, it could be taken that he doesn't want him to be a little 90-pound weakling, and frankly, what are the odds of that happening? I mean, look at him. So he encourages him to work out, therefore making him more of a man. But it's pretty obvious Frank wants him buffed up for other reasons. Say hello to Eddie, and also hello to the big screen debut of Meat Loaf. We'll learn a little bit more about Eddie and why he's been stuck in a freezer later, but for now, all we have to know is that he's a party animal in love with motorcycles, loud music, drugs, and dry humping. After the success of Rocky Horror Picture Show, Meat Loaf went on to bigger and better things. Well, he got bigger, alright. Frank, not to be upstaged at his own party, quickly puts Eddie in his place. This is to say, several places. It's a real shame, too, because Eddie seems like such a hoot to have around.
It was a mercy killing. He had a certain naive charm, but no muscle.
The scene bookends with a little bit more of I Can Make You a Man, again swinging the focus back around to Frankenfurter. The guy is a complete narcissist, but at least he shares the spotlight for a little while with Rocky, but it's probably just because Rocky is his own creation and he wants to show off his new toy. The unpleasantness of the axe murder out of the way, Frank gingerly escorts Rocky to, the place where he'll be made a man? Ew. Brad and Janet are invited to be overnight guests in the castle, and taking full advantage of the situation, Dr. Frank proves he is the master of disguise by sneaking in a little piece of Janet disguised as Brad. Frank is revealed and Janet fights him off, but not for long. In the interest of fairness and equality, Frank does the same thing to Brad, who gives in a little too easily. Guess he's not as straight-laced as we thought, but honestly, who could resist? So, it looks like the seeds of dissent are being sown. Rip Raff and Magenta scare Rocky off and claim he just escaped his chains and they sick the dogs on him. Janet, while lamenting her decision to sleep with the creepy, flamboyant transvestite, discovers on a convenient monitor that proves that she is not the only one with questionable sexual tastes. She uncovers Rocky, cowering from his misadventures with the dogs, and she gets the bright idea to enact her revenge on Brad's infidelity and sudden smoking habit by seducing someone logical for a change. Well, looks like Janet was saving herself from marriage after all. Well, that's all out the window now, and she wants more. All it takes to release 20-some-odd years of sexual repression is a little attempted rape, apparently, and she becomes a complete animal, almost forcing herself on the childlike Rocky. Then again, what must it do to a person when this is what you lose your virginity to after all this time? You still can't seem to agree on Rocky's character yet again, as from one second he looks like he's coming on to her, and the next he's acting like a 5-year-old running away from his kiss-happy Great Aunt on Thanksgiving. The entire show is stolen with just one line. One line instantly pulls this song out from being just another song to something eternally memorable. I just love that part. And it's honestly the only reason I listen to it so often, just for that one little payoff. Riff Raff gets his rather unmerciful punishment for letting Rocky escape, but is saved by discovering that there is another visitor who is immediately recognized as Dr. Scott, a former teacher of Brad and Janet.
Dr. Everett Scott! You know this earthling.
This name is not unknown to the Transylvanians, and they react with hostility when they think that they all might be working together, seeing as he now works for the FBI involving the existence of UFOs. Gee, I wonder what that could possibly foreshadow. Frank sends Dr. Scott on Mr. Toad's wild ride and brings him front row center to confront him on the supposed plan to infiltrate the castle.
Great Scott!
It turns out Dr. Scott has other purposes to his visit, and that's to find Eddie, who is now neatly cubed in Dr. Frank's deep freezer. Well, the gang's all here, and Frank is not happy about Rocky's sudden interest in anything not involving his hairy man-ass. This is the castle of secrets and lies.
Master, dinner is prepared!
All that sex makes a body hungry, so it's dinner time, and boy, oh boy, you could not make a more awkward dinner scene if you tried.
We came here to discuss Eddie.
Oh, thank God, a song. Anything to lighten the mood in this place. What's so great about the songs in this movie is that they're all short, sweet, and memorable. Here, Dr. Scott is allowed to get his groove on as he tells us all about Eddie and his rather troubled childhood. Turns out Eddie got wise to some evil deeds and he's sent out for help. Looks like help came a little bit too late, seeing that Eddie now has become part of those evil deeds and lies comfortably on the floor of the walk-in freezer. This is one of the only songs included to have a really obvious hook in it, and while it's catchy enough, it doesn't have the same degree of success as most of the others do.
What a god!
Makes you cry.
Und I did.
That's a rather tender subject.
Tender subject indeed. Okay, so any and all pretense goes right out the window and all hell breaks loose. Frank tells Janet she's lousy in bed while chasing her all the way back up to the laboratory. Brad and Dr. Scott quick after. Frank decides that fun time is over and he glues them all to the spot with a machine called the Medusa transducer.
It's as if we're glued to the spot! So quick with fear, you tiny fool!
Brad tries to defend Janet, but naturally Frank turns him to stone. Dr. Scott stands up for her, well, figuratively, not literally. He gets the stone treatment too. Janet mouthing off, stone, stone, stone! Everybody gets the stone!
It's not easy having a good time.
I grow weary of this world! When shall we return to Transylvania, huh?
We are ready for the floor show.
Ah, the much fabled floor show, and the big finale, which is comprised of a series of 4 songs, each with their own elaborate visuals. We have Rose Tint My World as our stone friends are de-Medusified and apparently are just fine with the fact that they've been kidnapped and turned into stone, and are in fact quite ready to embrace their new hedonistic lifestyle. As well as turning people to and from stone, the Medusa transducer is also capable of transforming Rocky's personality from his childlike mute self to his high-stepping singer self. Another clever song that explains a little bit about each character, what they're going through right now. Columbia was in love with Frank and Furter before Rocky came along. Rocky is just as confused as ever and was apparently created with limitless libido for obvious reasons. Brad is trying to fight off this mind control but gives in eventually, and Janet, well, she is all over it. Even Dr. Scott embraces his sensual side. This is quickly followed by Frank's grand entrance with Don't Dream It, Be It, which is actually really inspirational, telling you to stop just dreaming about what you want and just do it. Maybe not to the extremes that Frank has, but the lesson is sound. We're also reminded that as flamboyant as Tim Curry has been in this movie, he really does have an excellent singing voice, and he weaves it into his acting performance. And what better way to prove that you released yourself to absolute pleasure than having your very first pool orgy? It's good to see that they've been able to put all that murder and sexual assault behind them, though. As if that wasn't enough, we break right into Wild and Untamed Thing, as if we needed more confirmation that yes indeed, Frank is a bit on the uninhibited side. The song is basically a more up-tempo and upbeat version of Rose Tint My World, and my god it works well. This 3-song series we usually lump together as The Stage Show, and it works remarkably well as a trinity. Upbeat beginning, slower middle, then BAM! Even more upbeat ending, perfectly bookending itself with a reprise. A+. This is interrupted and brought to an abrupt end when Riff Raff and Magenta, sick of Frank's extreme lifestyle and back in their space garb, throw a coup and declare his lifestyle too extreme to continue on. No! Not Frankenfurter! He seems so normal to me. They announce that his mission was a failure, take Frank as their prisoner, and prepare to beam back home to the planet Transsexual in the far-off galaxy of Transylvania.
Wait!
I was never too clear on what the exact mission was. Maybe it was to create life. Well, if that's the case, he actually succeeded, but his choice of making their ultimate creation a buffed-up mute living sex toy was admittedly a poor one. Frank seems pleased at the prospect of returning home and gives us one last big number. It's somewhat touching, really, as we really understand that all Frank really wanted was to just have a good time.
Through the tears in my eyes.
It's all done in this cheesy, classic, over-the-top stage show singing monologue, and he really does seem to lose himself in the moment.
I'm going home.
That is until Riff Raff gets bored, shoots him dead, shoots Columbia for good measure, shoots Rocky for not making up his mind which personality he wants to stick with, and then tells the survivors to fuck off before the entire castle takes off for home. Well, that was the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and you gotta admit, there's something missing. Hang on. I knew it! There are 2 versions of this movie, and there was a song at the end in the original UK version that got lost or cut on its way to the US release. Why, I don't know, but thankfully, my DVD has both of them. So after the castle takes off, there's a quick little song called Superheroes that was cut out of the US release. The lyrics are a little obtuse, but they can either be construed as Brad and Janet lamenting the loss of Frank, or perhaps now that their inhibitions have been set loose, they have no real way to get their fix. It's a shame too, because it's really not that long a song, and it's a nice lead-in to the final words of the criminologist. Alright, well now it's over, and I feel amused yet dirty. It's no wonder this movie became the huge phenomenon that it is today. Despite its rough beginnings, this movie tanked at the box office, but when they started doing midnight showings for it, people just clamored for it. If you can bypass your machismo and open yourself up to what the movie really is, you'll find a wholly original story, fantastic songwriting, and one of the most over-the-top yet fantastic performances by Tim Curry. It's hard to fathom the character being played by anyone else after seeing him roll with the character of Frank. Alright kids, it's time for Best Worst. Just like any other album, you're bound to have your favorite song and something that you would consider to be your least favorite song. So here's mine. It's really tough to pick one since there are so many great songs, but I'll have to go with the obvious one, The Time Warp. It's so ridiculously catchy, and it has a pre-made dance to go with it, which is a surefire way to make it memorable, and it has become just as trademark to the film as Sweet Transvestite. The worst one? Sword of Damocles. It just comes off as unnecessary, and it introduces Rocky as a talking character, only to have him change immediately into the childlike mute. Seriously, having a flip-flop personalities like that through the entire movie is just off-putting and stupid. Stupid. Oh wow, it's been a while since I watched that movie, and it gets weirder every time I see it. Oh man, I cannot believe how huge this pile of DVDs is. How the hell am I gonna get through all? I don't even know which one to watch next. To the dartboard! I have made a list of stuff. What have I made? Excited! I'll do this as unwieldy as possible. But this is but a prelude to the weirdness. To the weirdness! To the weirdness! That was not the script at all, as a matter of fact. And that was what I consider a rather lengthy waste of time.